The chamber was electric, every eye fixed on the stage, every ear straining for the words that would define the night. Marjorie Taylor Greene leaned forward, a smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth, her voice sharp and unapologetic. She launched into yet another baseless attack, her words dripping with arrogance, aimed not just at policy but at people, at the very identities of those she sought to dismiss. The audience murmured, some shifting uncomfortably, others leaning in, sensing the storm about to break. And then AOC spoke. Her voice was calm, measured, but every syllable carried the weight of years of struggle, sacrifice, and unwavering principle. "Let's be clear," she said, each word deliberate, slicing through the tension. "When facts matter, fear doesn't get a vote." There was a pause, a beat long enough for every whisper, every gasp, every flash of a camera to synchronize. In one moment of collective realization, the smirk froze on Greene's face. The room held its breath. Cameras panned, capturing the stunned reactions. Social media was already igniting in the background, feeds lighting up with incredulous comments. People across the nation were witnessing it live. The hero unflinching, delivering a rebuttal so precise, so devastating, it left the villain visibly rattled. The energy was cinematic, an invisible current of shock and awe pulsing through the chamber, the audience vibrating with anticipation and disbelief. And yet, it wasn't just about winning the debate. It was about identity, integrity, and truth. It was about standing tall when the world seemed determined to knock you down. AOC's words carried a message that resonated far beyond politics, a reminder that courage could rise above cruelty, that reason could dismantle arrogance in real time. The tension lingered, the echo of that single moment stretching beyond the stage. Cameras zoomed in on Greene, her composure faltering, a flicker of uncertainty betraying the confidence she had wielded so recklessly. Every eye was drawn to AOC, the calm epicenter in a storm of chaos, and for a heartbeat, it felt as if time itself had paused. But the sparks flying on that stage were just the beginning of a story no one saw coming. This was more than a debate. It was a battlefield where the future of public discourse hung in the balance, where every word, every glance, every pause carried weight far beyond the confines of the chamber. Across the nation, millions watched, their hearts beating in unison, with the tension on stage. For some, it was a test of integrity. For others, a spectacle of theater. But for those who cared about truth, it was a defining moment. Marjorie Taylor Greene had built her career on spectacle and provocation, cultivating an image of fearless confrontation. She thrived on headlines, on outrage, on the viral thrill of division. But tonight her usual tactics collided with a force she had underestimated. AOC's composure was not just preparation, it was strategy, a deliberate demonstration of poise, under pressure. The contrast could not have been starker, one fueled by chaos, the other guided by principle. Every policy point debated carried broader implications. Healthcare, climate, civil rights, and public accountability all hung in the air as symbols of larger ideological battles. The audience knew that these were not just abstract issues. These were decisions shaping the nation's identity, determining who had a voice and whose dignity was overlooked. As Greene leaned into bombastic attacks, she risked more than credibility. She risked the legitimacy of the ideas she championed. Every misstep, every exaggeration, was being dissected not only by live viewers, but by millions scrolling through commentary, news feeds, and social media threads in real time. The stakes extended beyond politics into identity. For immigrant families, for marginalized communities, for anyone who had been dismissed or silenced, this confrontation was a mirror reflecting their struggles and aspirations. The fight on stage was a fight for acknowledgement, for representation, for the simple principle that integrity and intellect could challenge arrogance and prejudice. Millions understood this intuitively, and millions more felt a rising anxiety. How would this clash resolve? Would truth prevail, or would spectacle overshadow substance once again? The press, as always, circled like vultures. Every soundbite, every glance, every reaction was a story waiting to explode across the headlines. Analysts prepared instant commentary. Social media accounts queued up threads and hashtags, and influencers amplified every nuance. Reputation, once fragile, was being tested under the unrelenting glare of public scrutiny. For AOC, one misstep could be spun into a narrative of failure. For Greene, the same misstep could unravel a carefully curated persona of dominance. The pressure was palpable, the tension almost unbearable. And yet, in this crucible of national attention, something remarkable was forming. The audience, both live and virtual, sensed that this clash was more than a momentary spectacle. It was a statement about values, about accountability, about courage in the face of relentless provocation. Every eye remained fixed on the stage, every mind racing to anticipate the next move. The weight of history, of reputation, of civic responsibility pressed down like a silent drumbeat, echoing louder than any microphone. Yet behind the theatrics, the villain's history hinted at deeper recklessness. Marjorie Taylor Greene's rise in politics was never quiet, and it was never subtle. From the very beginning, her career was built on the kind of firebrand tactics that ignited outrage and divided communities. Headlines chronicled her every incendiary claim. From questioning the legitimacy of elected leaders to amplifying baseless conspiracy theories, she carved a niche as a provocateur who thrived on shock value. Greene accuses fellow Congress, members of secret plots, one news outlet blared, capturing the essence of a career fueled by audacity rather than evidence. Social media exploded each time she spoke, trending hashtags of disbelief and condemnation colliding with a fervent base that celebrated her defiance. Her public persona was audacious, relentless, and calculated, or so it seemed. But beneath the veneer of bravado lay a pattern of reckless behavior that would, over time, chip away at credibility. There were moments when the theatrics went too far, when statements sparked national outrage rather than applause. Videos circulated, showing Greene aggressively confronting colleagues, brandishing a posture of intimidation, all while rallying supporters with claims that stretched beyond plausibility. Each incident amplified the persona of someone who would say anything, do anything, to dominate the narrative. Controversy followed her like a shadow. From inflammatory remarks about historical tragedies to vilifying entire communities for political gain, Greene's rhetoric consistently pushed the boundaries of decency. She leveraged fear as a tool, casting opponents as villains in her stories, while painting herself as a lone warrior against imagined threats. The strategy worked, at first. Her followers cheered, retweets soared, and she became a lightning rod for attention. Yet every viral post, every provocative interview, added layers to a reputation that teetered between influence and infamy. Even among her allies, whispers of concern grew. Pundits questioned whether her approach could survive scrutiny in the spotlight of national debates. The more extreme the statements, the greater the risk that a single misstep could implode the carefully constructed image. Social media users dissected her every word, replaying clips of past controversies, contrasting them with her current claims, and exposing inconsistencies. Each viral thread, each headline, chipped away at the perception of dominance she had cultivated. The outrage she once wielded as a weapon began circling back, turning attention into a mirror reflecting recklessness. The cumulative effect of Greene's history was a tension that extended beyond politics into the theater of public perception. Every action, every comment, became a potential trap. Audiences, both supportive and critical, were acutely aware that the theatrics carried consequences. The stage was no longer just a place to perform. It was a testing ground where past actions would collide with present scrutiny. Even as Greene projected confidence, a subtle unease lingered, an instinctive acknowledgement that recklessness, however bold, had its limits. And yet, despite all the warning signs, Greene continued to thrive. In chaos, her energy, her audacity, her willingness to speak without hesitation created a spectacle impossible to ignore. Each controversy fed the next, creating a cycle of shock, applause, and scrutiny. But the very qualities that made her formidable, her unpredictability, her confrontational style, her disregard for restraint, also planted seeds of vulnerability. It was only a matter of time before a confrontation came that demanded more than spectacle, that demanded substance, preparation, and moral clarity. While Greene thrived on chaos, AOC's story told of discipline, resilience, and preparation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not enter politics by inheritance, by wealth, or by privilege. She entered it by choice, by determination, and by an unyielding sense of justice that had been forged long before she stepped onto the national stage. Born into a working-class family in the Bronx, she grew up intimately familiar with struggle, sacrifice, and the quiet resilience of people often overlooked by the political system. Her parents worked tirelessly to provide opportunities where none seemed available, instilling in her a fierce understanding that dignity and opportunity should never be determined by the accident of birth. From those early days, AOC learned to see the world not through the lens of entitlement, but through the lens of service. She walked streets where families worried about eviction notices, where children counted on school lunches, where communities thrived not despite systemic neglect, but in spite of it. These experiences shaped her voice, grounding it in empathy, intelligence, and clarity. She learned that true leadership was not performative. It was rooted in listening, learning, and then acting with courage and conviction. Her rise in politics was as meteoric as it was improbable. In 2018, she challenged a 10-term incumbent in New York's 14th congressional district. Few gave her a chance. Many dismissed her as inexperienced, as idealistic, as a symbolic gesture rather than a serious contender. But she campaigned tirelessly, knocking on thousands of doors, listening to stories of struggle and hope, translating the frustrations and aspirations of her community into a message of bold, progressive action. She did not just speak. She embodied the principles she advocated: healthcare for all, climate action, social equity, and the fight against corruption. Every debate, every rally, every interview was infused with the authenticity of someone who had lived the realities she sought to transform. What set AOC apart was not just passion, it was intellect. She could dismantle complex policy arguments with precision, anticipate attacks before they were launched, and respond with a combination of clarity and grace that left opponents scrambling. She honed her voice, her messaging, and her public presence with the meticulous care of someone preparing not for fleeting attention, but for lasting impact. In every campaign, every committee meeting, every public appearance, she cultivated a reputation for unflappable composure, for turning adversity into opportunity, and for framing debate not as a contest of ego, but as a platform for truth. Her activism extended beyond legislation. She amplified the voices of the marginalized, the immigrant families, the communities historically silenced. She understood the symbolic power of representation and wielded it with responsibility. Every appearance on social media, every speech, every viral moment was a calculated extension of her mission to validate, empower, and mobilize communities that had long been dismissed. The courage to speak, the clarity to articulate, and the empathy to connect became her armor and her weapon in the arena of public discourse. Yet AOC's journey was not without trials. She faced relentless attacks, often sexist, often rooted in identity-based prejudice. She endured threats, personal attacks, and public smears designed to undermine confidence and sow doubt. But each challenge only strengthened her resolve. She learned to remain poised when others tried to provoke, to rely on facts when others wielded fiction, and to transform adversity into narrative power. It was not instinct alone, but preparation, strategy, and an unwavering belief in principle that equipped her for confrontation. By the time the debate with Marjorie Taylor Greene arrived, AOC carried with her a lifetime of experience that uniquely prepared her for this moment. The working-class roots that taught resilience, the activism that sharpened her empathy, the political battles that honed her intellect, and the personal trials that forged her poise, all converged into a presence that could withstand chaos and turn it into clarity. Every word she would speak, every argument she would deliver, would be rooted in history, in struggle, and in the unwavering principle that truth and dignity are stronger than fear and spectacle. And as the debate began, the world would witness the culmination of years of struggle and strategy. The stage was charged with anticipation, the air thick with tension as the debate continued. Marjorie Taylor Greene leaned forward, a glint of mischief and defiance in her eyes. She interrupted before AOC could finish her sentence, her voice, sharp, almost theatrical, each word designed to provoke outrage. "You talk about facts, but what about reality?" she spat, leaning into a rehearsed mockery that drew gasps from the audience. The room reacted as if electricity had sparked between every seat, half of the chamber leaning in, eager for spectacle, half recoiling from the brazen audacity. Greene's attacks were relentless. She mocked policy proposals with exaggerated sneers, questioned intentions with insinuations that barely concealed disdain, and aimed each jab not only at AOC, but at the values she represented. Social media feeds lit up instantly, viewers sharing clips, adding commentary, and dissecting every facial expression in real time. The pundits on news channels leaned forward, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others preparing to capitalize on the drama with hot takes that would dominate the headlines. Greene's energy was undeniable, but in its intensity, there was recklessness, a vulnerability masked beneath bravado. Through it all, AOC remained composed. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't flinch, and she didn't allow the theatrics to dictate the pace. Every interruption was met with a measured glance, a subtle pause that drew attention back to her words, rather than the chaos Greene created. The contrast was striking. Where one relied on volume and provocation, the other wielded calm, focus, and precision. Each point AOC made was calculated, punctuated by evidence, lived experience, and clarity that cut through the noise. The audience could sense the weight behind her statements, the understanding that these were not just words, but principles she had lived and fought for. Every exchange ratcheted the suspense higher. Greene's gestures grew larger, her interruptions sharper, her tone increasingly desperate as she sought to unsettle her opponent. And yet, the more Greene escalated, the more AOC's presence solidified. Each rebuttal landed with surgical precision, reframing attacks into teachable moments, challenging assumptions while keeping the crowd engaged and alert. Whispers and murmurs spread through the audience, some admiring the poise, others bracing for the inevitable twist. Cameras caught every micro-expression. Greene's fleeting flashes of frustration, the tension in her posture, the narrowing of her eyes as the momentum subtly shifted. Even outside the chamber, the drama rippled. Hashtags trended, viewers commented. On split screens, memes began to circulate with lightning speed, and commentators dissected tone, diction, and body language with a kind of obsession that only a high-stakes confrontation could provoke. Every moment on stage became a domino in a cascading chain of suspense, and viewers everywhere felt the pulse of the encounter in real time. And through it all, the audience felt it. The sense that something monumental was about to happen. Greene's attacks, though loud and brash, had unintentionally set the stage for the moment that would define the debate. Every mockery, every interruption, every feigned sneer fed into the rising tension, making the inevitable counterstrike. Not just likely, but inevitable. The crowd, the commentators and viewers at home all held their breath. Then, in an instant, AOC executed a response that would leave everyone speechless. AOC's eyes met Greene's for a brief, steadying moment. The room seemed to constrict around her, the murmurs of the audience fading into a tense silence. Every interruption, every sneer, every jab that Greene had thrown now hovered in the one air, waiting to be addressed. And when AOC spoke, it was not with volume or fury, it was with precision, with the kind of measured clarity that left no room for misdirection or evasion. "Let's step back for a moment," she began, her voice calm, resonant, each word deliberate. "We're not here to trade insults or generate headlines. We are here to talk about policy, about people, about the real consequences of decisions, made in this room." A pause followed, heavy and deliberate. Cameras lingered on Greene's face as her confident smirk wavered, a flicker of unease betraying the unshakable composure she had relied upon until now. AOC's words landed like stones dropped into a still pond, creating ripples that spread across the chamber and out into living rooms, social feeds, and news networks across the nation. "When policies are presented," AOC continued, "they are not abstract. They affect healthcare, housing, climate, and education. Yet here we are, watching claims repeated without evidence, accusations designed to distract rather than inform." The crowd shifted, leaning in, sensing the shift in momentum. AOC didn't pause for applause. She didn't need to. The energy in the room responded instinctively, a collective realization that the narrative Greene had tried to control was slipping through her fingers. Social media feeds exploded in real time. Viewers typed hashtags like "Chat facts over fear" and "AOC unstoppable," tagging clips of the exchange, replaying the measured dismantling of Greene's claims over and over. Memes were born in seconds, highlighting the contrast between theatrics and intellect, chaos and clarity. AOC then addressed Greene's most audacious statements directly, one by one, with undeniable evidence and irrefutable logic. She cited data, referenced historical context, and wove personal experience into her counterpoints, demonstrating a deep understanding of the consequences of policy on everyday lives. Each rebuttal was precise, calculated, a scalpel cutting through layers of misinformation and bluster. Greene's posture stiffened. The smirk disappeared entirely, replaced by fleeting flashes of defensiveness, hesitation, and frustration. Every attempted interjection was met with a calm, unwavering redirection, a subtle assertion of control that made the chamber itself seem to tilt toward AOC. At one moment, AOC delivered a line that would be replayed endlessly. "Distraction and fear are easy. Truth and courage are hard. And we are here for the hard work, for the people, for the future we all share." The audience erupted, not in cheers alone, but in a palpable release of tension, the collective recognition that what they were witnessing was more than a debate. It was a masterclass in integrity under pressure. Cameras captured Greene's faltering attempts to respond, her hands tightening on the podium, her eyes darting as she searched for footing in the shifting narrative. Outside the chamber, the impact was instantaneous. Clips went viral within seconds, shared by millions across platforms. Political commentators scrambled to analyze the moment, using slow-motion replays, side-by-side comparisons, and expert breakdowns to illustrate the dramatic contrast between AOC's composure and Greene's unraveling. Viewers flooded comment sections with admiration and disbelief, some declaring it a defining moment in modern politics, others marveling at the heroism of calm, informed advocacy. The tide of public opinion seemed to surge toward validation of AOC's approach, amplifying her message and leaving Greene on the defensive, both in real time and across digital landscapes. Even within the chamber, the effect was cinematic. Members leaned forward, some nodding in subtle acknowledgement, others whispering reactions to colleagues. The tension that had built from Greene's initial provocations dissolved into a cascade of astonishment. Every misstatement Greene had counted on for momentum was now reframed as evidence of recklessness, while every carefully constructed point by AOC reinforced a narrative of competence, strategy, and unwavering moral clarity. It was as if the room itself recognized the hero's presence, responding instinctively to integrity and intellect in motion. AOC's final moments in this exchange were delivered with a rhythm that seemed choreographed by experience and intuition. She allowed pauses for impact, her eyes scanning the audience, absorbing the reaction, letting it reinforce the weight of her words without uttering a single boast. History, she concluded, will remember those who act with courage and clarity, not those who thrive on division and spectacle. The silence that followed was not emptiness. It was acknowledgement, a breath held by a nation witnessing, a rare convergence of principle, preparation, and performance. Greene's attempts to reclaim control were feeble, fragmented, and increasingly frantic. Every facial tic, every fleeting glance betrayed the erosion of certainty she had projected. Moments before, social media amplified the unraveling in real time, with clips, reactions, and commentary multiplying like wildfire. The spectacle Greene had relied upon to dominate the debate now highlighted her own contradictions, every interruption reframed as a desperate bid to regain lost ground. The audience, both live and virtual, experienced a collective exhilaration, a mix of vindication and awe. They were watching a moment that transcended politics, a demonstration that preparation, intellect, and principle could triumph over chaos, arrogance, and spectacle. The hero had not shouted. She had not panicked. She had acted with precision, turning every attack into a mirror reflecting its own weakness. And as the applause, the murmurs, and the digital echo of astonishment reverberated through the room, one truth was undeniable. The balance had shifted. The confrontation that had promised chaos had instead revealed mastery. The villain's confidence faltered, the hero's resolve shone brighter than ever, and the world had witnessed a demonstration of courage that would be remembered long after. The chamber emptied. The stage was quiet, but the aftermath would shake the nation. The moment AOC delivered her response, the world outside the chamber erupted. Within seconds, hashtags like Laksh AOC wins, facts over fear, and mic drop moment began trending across platforms, spreading like wildfire through feeds that had been primed for controversy. Clips of the exchange looped endlessly, dissected frame by frame, analyzed for tone, expression, and timing. Memes surfaced almost instantaneously, split screens comparing Greene's furrowed brow to AOC's calm poise, captions highlighting the stark contrast between chaos and composure. Social media users from coast to coast shared, debated, and celebrated the moment, creating a collective experience that transcended politics. It became cultural, viral, and impossible to ignore. Commentators on television and streaming channels scrambled to keep up. Analysts replayed AOC's rebuttal in slow motion, pointing out how each phrase strategically dismantled Greene's claims, how timing, cadence, and evidence worked in perfect harmony. This is a masterclass in debate strategy, one political. Analyst declared, eyes wide, voice tinged with awe. Even traditionally neutral outlets acknowledged the impact, noting that the exchange would dominate news cycles for days. Every expert, pundit, and social media influencer weighed in, contributing to a swelling wave of validation and excitement. Politicians from both sides of the aisle noticed, their statements ranging from cautious admiration to outright praise. Some highlighted the eloquence and preparation AOC brought to the stage. Others, even critics of her policies, conceded that the display of calm under pressure was extraordinary. The event had become a defining moment, illustrating not just the clash of personalities, but the contrast between impulsive spectacle and measured, principled response. Celebrities, activists, and public figures joined the conversation. Tweets and posts lauded AOC for her courage, framing her not just as a politician, but as a symbol of integrity in an era dominated by noise. Videos went viral with overlays of her quotes, paired with stirring music and captions emphasizing truth, resilience, and justice. Immigrant communities and advocacy groups amplified her message, framing the exchange as a victory for representation, for voices long marginalized, for those who had fought to see their identities validated in public spaces. The moment became a rallying cry, a point of pride, a shared victory felt across classrooms, living rooms, and city streets alike. The debate replayed endlessly in online discussions, podcasts, and news roundups. Clips were spliced to emphasize Greene's hesitation, her facial tics, the faltering confidence that had once seemed unshakable. Each fragment told a story of reckoning, of accountability meeting hubris. Analysts contrasted AOC's meticulous preparation with Greene's impulsive theatrics, framing it as a cautionary tale for public figures everywhere. Spectacle may grab attention, but substance wins respect and credibility. Fans and casual viewers alike found themselves swept up in the communal energy. Social feeds were flooded with animated GIFs of AOC pausing for effect, memes highlighting key quotes, and commentary that ranged from admiration to incredulity. People debated with friends, family, and strangers online, sharing clips and quotes as if they were fragments of history unfolding in real time. The energy was intoxicating, connected to something larger than happening live, with each person a witness, participant, and amplifier. Even weeks later, the exchange continued to ripple. Highlight reels, deep dives, and commentary segments kept the story alive, cementing its place in the public imagination. Teachers used clips in civics classes to illustrate rhetoric, strategy, and integrity. Activists shared the moment as an example of the power of preparation, courage, and ethical leadership. It became both instruction and inspiration, proof that words, delivered with care and conviction, could reverberate far beyond the room in which they were spoken. Across all channels, one theme emerged consistently. AOC had not merely won a debate, she had captured the public's imagination. Social validation poured in from all corners, creating a feedback loop of excitement, admiration, and pride. The drama of the moment extended well beyond the chamber, reinforcing the stakes, the hero's competence, and the sense of witnessing history in motion. Audiences felt united in shock, in awe, and in exhilaration, bonded by a shared recognition that they had witnessed something extraordinary. Yet, beyond the noise, the real lesson was just beginning to emerge. In the quiet that followed the storm of applause, the chamber seemed to exhale. The spectacle of confrontation had passed, but what remained was far deeper than any viral clip or headline. AOC's words, her composure, and her unwavering clarity reframed the entire encounter, not as a clash of personalities, but as a demonstration of enduring principles. The message was unmistakable. Dignity, preparation, and moral courage could rise above chaos, arrogance, and misinformation. It was a lesson that resonated far beyond politics, touching the very fabric of public life and civic responsibility. The audience, both in the chamber and watching across the nation, recognized what they had witnessed. They had seen a model of leadership that did not rely on theatrics, bullying, or the amplification of fear. Instead, they had seen someone who understood that authority is not claimed through volume, but earned through integrity, intelligence, and steadfast adherence to principle. Every carefully chosen word, every measured pause, every calm rebuttal was a testament to the power of preparation and purpose. It was a demonstration of what happens when courage is paired with clarity, when ethics are combined with strategy, and when the long arc of justice is preferred over short-term spectacle. The symbolic weight of the moment reverberated across communities that had long struggled to be heard. Immigrants, marginalized groups, young activists, and anyone who had felt dismissed or underestimated saw in AOC a reflection of their own aspirations. The knowledge that even in the face of intimidation and hostility, one could rise, speak truth, and effect meaningful change. The debate became a metaphor, a narrative proving that the right combination of courage, intellect, and empathy can challenge even the loudest forces of arrogance and division. In classrooms, living rooms, and online forums, people discussed the encounter not as entertainment, but as education. They dissected AOC's strategy, admired her poise, and reflected on the importance of preparation in confronting adversity. The viral moments became teaching moments, illustrating how integrity can hold its ground against chaos, how facts can withstand fear, and how moral clarity can disarm spectacle. This was more than a political victory. It was a blueprint for principled leadership, a reminder that true influence arises from character as much as skill. Even Greene's theatrics served a purpose in the moral framing. By contrast, they highlighted the power of restraint, knowledge, and dignity. The tension between chaos and composure, between provocation and principle, reinforced the narrative that audiences would carry forward. People were not just impressed, they were inspired. They saw the possibilities of what leadership could look like when it is grounded in preparation and moral courage, when it prioritizes people and truth over ego and theatrics. The cinematic arc of the debate, amplified by social media, commentary, and real-time reactions, had delivered a powerful emotional payoff. Triumph was not measured by applause alone, but by the resonance of the lesson, that in moments of public scrutiny and confrontation, character is the ultimate currency. Audiences felt a sense of moral satisfaction, the uplifting recognition that the right approach, though demanding patience and preparation, can prevail against those who rely solely on intimidation and spectacle. As the echoes of the debate continued to ripple outward, one truth crystallized above all. Leadership is not about domination. It is about responsibility. Not about creating headlines, but creating change. Not about amplifying fear, but about exemplifying courage. In the end, the confrontation became a story of inspiration, a narrative proving that principle and preparation, when paired with unwavering courage, can turn even the most chaotic moments into enduring lessons of hope and dignity. The audience left the arena, the world watched, and a lesson echoed far beyond the stage. The clash between AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene was more than a debate. It was a defining moment that captured the tension, stakes, and possibilities of our time. One side relied on chaos, provocation, and spectacle, while the other demonstrated poise, preparation, and principle. The outcome wasn't just a win in a single exchange. It was a vivid reminder that integrity, courage, and clarity can prevail even under the most intense pressure. Audiences everywhere witnessed a demonstration of leadership that inspires confidence, admiration, and hope. Now the conversation doesn't end with the last clip or trending hashtag. It continues in your communities, your social feeds, and your discussions. What AOC showed us is a blueprint for engagement. Speak with truth, act with purpose, and stand firm even when provoked. Each of us can carry forward this example, whether in debates, in civic participation, or simply in the way we respond to misinformation and arrogance in our daily lives. The hero of this story didn't shout the loudest. She acted with clarity, and that is the kind of power that leaves a lasting impact. If you felt the weight of this moment, if you were inspired by the calm mastery and moral courage displayed on that stage, don't let it fade. Share this story, discuss it with friends, and engage in the civic dialogue that shapes our communities. Subscribe to the channel to stay connected to moments that challenge, inspire, and illuminate the values we hold dear. Comment below with your thoughts, your reflections, and the lessons you take from witnessing courage in action. Every voice matters, every perspective counts, and every act of engagement is a step toward a more informed, empowered, and principled public. Be part of the conversation. Be part of the change. Stand with truth, clarity, and courage, and carry the lesson of this historic clash forward into your own life.